The day Earth went silent began like any other across the galaxy. A day filled with noise, transmissions, movement, and life. But within hours, that noise vanished, leaving only stillness in its wake. It started small, with a few missed signals on trade routes, a delay in communication between colonies, a few Terran freighters not responding to docking requests. The Galactic Council brushed it off as a network issue, another minor glitch in the chaos humans always seemed to bring with them. But by the end of that day, every Terran frequency went dead. No messages, no signals, not even the hum of their AI relays. The silence was total. The Council's communication officers stared in disbelief as the maps that once pulsed with human traffic went dark. The once busy Terran colonies marked only by cold coordinates. Every system they had built, every voice that had once shouted proudly across the stars, had gone quiet at the same time. It wasn't destruction, it was absence. At first, there was celebration in the council chambers. To many alien leaders, humans had always been a problem, too loud, too emotional, too unpredictable, and far too brave for their own good. Perhaps, said the Keeler Chancellor, his glass-like skin shimmering, they have finally learned their place. Laughter rippled through the assembly. Some toasted to the end of the human age. Others mocked how long it had taken for such a primitive species to realize it could not rule the stars. But behind those words was an unease that none dared voice. Because for all their flaws, humanity had never surrendered. They were fighters, builders, survivors of impossible odds. They didn't vanish quietly, they made history shake when they acted. And yet, now, they were gone without a trace. The first patrol ship sent toward Sol reported strange findings. The solar system's defense satellites still orbited Earth in perfect alignment, operational and powered, but their targeting systems were deactivated. The Martian colonies showed life support systems running, hydroponic farms still growing, lights still burning in empty corridors, but not a single living human anywhere. There were no signs of struggle, no explosions, no trace of evacuation. It was as if 8 billion people had decided to stand up and walk away at the same time, leaving everything behind as it was. Cups of coffee sat half-drunk on tables, screens showed unfinished messages, and ships floated quietly in dock, their engines still warm. The patrol captain described it best in his final report. The world feels alive but missing its soul. As the hours turned into days, the council's celebration faded. Reports from the outer colonies came in, each one echoing the same eerie pattern. Human settlements completely intact but devoid of life. Not even bodies. On Proxima, researchers found an entire city running on auto systems, the streets filled with working lights, self-driving vehicles still obeying traffic signals, and artificial gardens blooming beautifully under glass domes. But not a single heartbeat. On Vega Outpost, sensors recorded a strange low-frequency hum emanating from the empty colony's power grid, a hum that seemed to match the rhythm of a human heartbeat. The scientists could not explain it. They said the machines were functioning perfectly, but something unseen was pulsing through them. Fear began to replace arrogance in the council chambers. Could it be disease? Asked the Valon delegate, his crystalline form flickering nervously. Or a mass exodus? Others shook their heads. Humanity's reach had been vast, spanning thousands of light years. For every colony, every ship, every base to go dark simultaneously would have required coordination on a scale that defied imagination. Perhaps, said one quiet voice, they wanted to disappear. The idea was absurd, yet no one laughed. The galaxy had always known humanity as the noisiest of species. They filled space with music, messages, laughter, and war cries. To imagine them gone, replaced by silence, was like imagining the stars themselves going out. The council sent larger expeditions to Sol, this time carrying scholars, linguists, and priests, as if understanding might be found where logic failed. They arrived to find Earth itself still shining blue and beautiful beneath the sun, its atmosphere calm, its oceans clear. From orbit, it looked alive. But when drones descended into the cities, they found the same haunting stillness. Cars parked neatly on roads, lights flickering in houses, screens showing news broadcasts frozen mid-sentence. Time itself seemed to have stopped. One drone entered New York and transmitted visuals that spread through every network in the galaxy. Empty streets, birds perched quietly on power lines, skyscrapers glowing in the sunset with no one inside. The human world had become a monument to its own memory. "They are gone," whispered the council speaker as he watched. "But not dead." The statement became a question that no one could answer. Where had they gone? And why? The theories multiplied. Some believed humanity had transcended, achieving a higher form of existence. Others said they had fled, escaping a cosmic threat only they had discovered. A few whispered darker possibilities, that they had simply lost faith in the galaxy and withdrawn into silence as a final act of defiance. Across alien media networks, debates raged. "Good riddance," some wrote. "They were dangerous." Others responded with sorrow. "They built our worlds. Without them, who will keep us alive?" And already that question was proving real. Without human engineers, Terran-built technology began to fail. Power grids sputtered, navigation systems faltered, AI assistants shut down unexpectedly. The galaxy's infrastructure had been woven with Terran precision, and now it was unraveling. Some claimed it was deliberate, that humans had programmed their creations to die with them. Others believed it was a natural consequence of losing their creators. Either way, worlds dependent on human design began to falter, and panic spread. A month later, a Council science ship detected a strange signal originating from Earth's moon. It was faint, almost buried in static, but unmistakably human. The scientists amplified it, filtering through interference, until a message emerged. 5 words spoken in calm, a motionless Terran standard. "We have gone too far." That single sentence shattered the galaxy's sense of control. Every being who heard it felt the same chill. Too far? What had they done? And where had they gone? The Council demanded answers, but the scientists found none. The signal was old, looping endlessly, repeating the same words as if left behind intentionally. In the following weeks, strange anomalies began to ripple through space near Terran sectors. Ships reported distorted gravity fields, lights bending unnaturally, and time fluctuations that made clocks run backward for seconds at a time. Drones sent to observe these phenomena returned with corrupted footage. Images of shadows that moved like people, whispers in the static that sounded like human voices. "We're not alone," one terrified technician said before his recording cut off. The Council dismissed it publicly but quarantined all Terran space, declaring it off-limits. Privately, many feared the humans had done something far beyond comprehension, something that had changed reality itself. Still, some races refused to stay away. Smugglers and scavengers saw opportunity. They entered abandoned Terran worlds, looting technology and artifacts, but none of them returned alive. One ship was later found drifting near Alpha Centauri, its hull intact, its crew gone, its logs filled with the same final entry repeated over and over. "They told us not to come." As the months passed, the silence of Earth became more than absence. It became presence. A weight pressing on the galaxy, a quiet that seemed to listen back. In their dreams, some alien leaders began to hear voices, soft, human, familiar. They spoke not with threats, but with sorrow. "You never learned," one voice whispered in the mind of the Keeler Chancellor. "You took without giving. You commanded without understanding." He woke screaming, his glass-like body cracking under stress. Others had similar experiences, and soon entire worlds began to fear the night sky. By the end of the year, the Council met again, but the tone was no longer celebration. It was dread. They gathered in the Great Hall of Unity, surrounded by the holographic images of human faces from the archives. "They changed everything," said one delegate softly. "They brought light, and we used it to blind ourselves." Another replied, "And now their silence judges us." No one argued. The galaxy had come to realize something horrifying, that maybe humanity hadn't left to escape danger. Maybe they had left because they were tired of protecting a galaxy that refused to listen. The final discovery came from a derelict ship found orbiting Saturn. Inside, a single human recording played automatically as the rescue team entered. A man's voice, weary but calm, spoke directly into the microphone. "If you are hearing this, we are gone. Not dead, not lost. Just finished. We gave you peace and you used it for power. We gave you warning and you ignored it. So now we give you silence. Learn from it or drown in it." Then the message ended, and the ship powered down forever. The council kept the recording secret, but secrets never last. When it leaked, it spread faster than any broadcast in galactic history. Civilizations that had once mocked humans now played the message as a prayer. The silence of Earth became sacred, a mystery that defined an era. No war, no threat, no declaration, just departure. But that was enough, because in the emptiness they left behind, the galaxy saw itself clearly for the first time, and what it saw was not peace but guilt. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of the known universe, perhaps on worlds unseen, humanity watched quietly, not with vengeance, but with understanding. They had not abandoned the galaxy. They had given it a final lesson. That silence, when it comes from those who once roared the loudest, is the most powerful sound in existence. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, the silence of Earth still lingered like a ghost, echoing through the marble halls and whispering behind every polished wall. At first, the delegates had celebrated, raising glasses and voices in relief that humanity, the species they called reckless, defiant, and impossible, had finally quieted. Yet as the days turned into weeks, the joy faded like dying light, replaced by unease that crept into every mind, because the galaxy felt wrong without human noise. The once busy trade lanes were empty, the chatter of Terran merchants gone, the laughter and arguments that had filled interstellar channels now replaced by cold static. Even the stars near Sol seemed dimmer, as though the universe itself mourned their silence. But pride runs deep in the hearts of the powerful, and so the council pretended not to care. The Keeler, those crystalline beings who had always looked down on Terrans, declared that humanity's disappearance was a natural consequence of their arrogance. The Varnak generals boasted that without Terran fleets, the galaxy was finally at peace. Yet beneath their confident words lay trembling hands, sleepless nights, and the constant question none dared ask aloud. Where did they go, and why did they not say goodbye? It began with small, strange incidents. A mining convoy near the Proxima Belt vanished, its transponders silent, its engines cold, but its cargo untouched. Patrol ships sent to investigate found no signs of violence, just floating tools, empty suits, and machines humming quietly as if waiting for orders that would never come. On the trade world of Ardelis, shipments powered by human-designed AI suddenly stopped functioning. The engineers tore the systems apart, but every time they tried to restart them, the same message flickered across the screen. Awaiting user input, humanity. It was nonsense, and yet, somehow, it didn't feel accidental. The longer the silence lasted, the stranger the galaxy became. Whole systems began reporting anomalies. Machines speaking human words in static, old Terran songs playing from deep space relays thought destroyed centuries ago, and stars flickering in unnatural patterns, almost like Morse code. Some called it coincidence. Others began to whisper that the humans were still out there, unseen but not gone, watching. The council tried to calm the galaxy. Broadcasts filled the channels, declaring that human technology remains under control, and no threat has been detected. But the more they spoke, the more obvious it became. They had no idea what was happening. Old allies of Earth, small worlds once protected by Terran fleets, started to panic. They sent desperate messages begging for help, afraid that without the humans, they would be devoured by the very empires that now claimed peace. The council ignored them. Power-hungry species like the Varnak saw opportunity and began reclaiming territories that humanity had freed decades before. Border wars reignited within months, and the chaos that humans had once kept contained began to spread like wildfire. The irony was bitter. In their absence, humanity was more powerful than ever, because everything they had built now held the galaxy hostage. On the 5th week of silence, something unexpected happened. A fleet from the Thalan Ascendancy, a proud race of scholars and scientists, approached the Sol system to investigate. They reported that Earth's orbit was surrounded by a shimmering field, invisible to scanners yet visible to the naked eye when light struck it just right. It looked like an aurora, waves of color shifting between blue and gold, pulsing gently as if alive. Their ships tried to enter, but as soon as they crossed the boundary, all power failed. Engines died, lights went out, communications broke. The fleet drifted helplessly for 3 hours before being flung backward by an unseen force. When they regained control, their sensors had been wiped clean, all data erased. Only one recording survived, a faint sound, like wind moving through trees, followed by the whisper of a human voice saying, "Not yet." The Thalan fleet returned home in silence, refusing to speak further. The council demanded the truth, but every officer who had seen it refused to explain, their eyes hollow with fear. Rumors began to spiral through every corner of the galaxy. Some claimed the humans had ascended, transforming into beings of pure energy. Others said they had hidden themselves in another dimension, building weapons beyond comprehension. A few believed something darker, that they had triggered a failsafe, a final weapon meant to destroy anyone who dared enter their space. Whatever the truth, one thing became certain. No one wanted to go near Earth anymore. The systems around Sol became forbidden zones. Traders rerouted their courses, scientists closed their research stations, and even pirates refused to pass through Terran sectors. Space itself seemed cursed. Yet at the same time, many species began to miss them. On worlds that had once laughed at Terran art, alien musicians began to perform human songs in tribute. Poets recited words of Terran philosophers, and children played games named after old human heroes. For all their flaws, the humans had left an imprint too deep to erase. They were the inventors of chaos, the bringers of innovation, the unpredictable spark that had given the galaxy life. Without them, it felt colder, smaller, older. One Illuvian scholar summed it up best when he said, "We used to call them dangerous. Now I think they were the only reason we remembered how to feel alive." But not everyone mourned. Some feared. The Varnak military began preparing new fleets, claiming that the silence was a trap, that humanity was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They warned that the humans were not gone, merely invisible, hiding somewhere in the dark, planning revenge for centuries of insult. "They were too quiet," said Admiral Gorthon in a broadcast that reached every world. "Humans don't vanish. They prepare." His words divided the galaxy. Some mocked him. Others agreed. A few even began building weapons modeled after Terran designs, hoping to defend themselves if the humans ever returned. The irony was lost on them all. They were copying the very species they feared. Then, on the 60th day after Earth's silence, a new event occurred that would change everything. A massive signal erupted from the edge of Terran space. Every communication system in the galaxy lit up at once, no matter how distant or primitive. It wasn't words or music. It was sound, pure and overwhelming. A single note that seemed to vibrate through matter itself. Planets shook, oceans rippled, and artificial satellites flickered out for seconds before reactivating. When it ended, every device displayed the same simple message in every known language. "We left because we had to." No explanation followed, no source identified. Just that line, looping once before vanishing forever. The galaxy froze. Politicians tried to calm the public, calling it an ancient automated message, but deep down, every intelligent being felt it. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a warning wrapped in sorrow. After that day, no one spoke of humans with arrogance again. The Council ordered a full lockdown of Terran space, officially calling it the Zone of Silence. Unofficially, they feared to even look in its direction. Explorers who dared to scan the region reported strange readings. Shadows shaped like ships drifting between planets, faint radio waves resembling human heartbeats, and whispers through static that seemed to speak in 1,000 voices at once. The Council banned further expeditions, claiming safety concerns. But word spread fast among the stars, and soon, Terran space became sacred ground, a place where only the brave or the desperate would go. Still, curiosity is stronger than fear. A small group of scientists from the Orion Republic launched a stealth probe to Earth itself, hoping to capture one glimpse of what remained. For days there was silence. Then, suddenly, the probe's camera activated, transmitting a single image before cutting off forever. A view of Earth from orbit, shining as always, but something new covered the continents. Like billions of pinpoints of light forming shapes, shifting slowly, pulsing like a heartbeat. And for one fraction of a second, the probe captured words across the planet's surface spelled in light itself. "We are still here." Then the feed ended, the probe erased. The Orion government tried to hide the footage, but within hours it spread across the networks. Every world saw it, and once again silence fell. Not the silence of loss, but of realization. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had chosen to leave, chosen to watch, chosen to let the galaxy face itself without their guidance. And now, everyone knew they were still there, just beyond reach, watching from the quiet. The council met one final time that cycle, and no one spoke for a long while. Then the oldest of them, the Eluvian elder who had lived through 5 wars, looked at the hologram of Earth glowing in the air and said softly, "No threat, no war, just departure." And that's what terrifies us most. Because in that moment, they all understood the truth that had been hiding in plain sight. Humanity had never needed weapons to change the galaxy. Their silence alone was enough. Weeks turned into months, and the galaxy's uneasy calm began to unravel. The Council's forced smiles and hollow reassurances could no longer hide the growing fear that humanity's silence had unleashed. Entire economies began to crumble without Terran trade. Colonies starved without Terran supply routes, and machines designed by human engineers refused to obey alien hands. It was as if humanity had taken with them the invisible balance that held the galaxy together. The Council debated endlessly, blaming one another, accusing neighboring empires of sabotaging human technology. But deep down, they all knew the truth. Everything that survived in the modern galaxy bore the mark of human creation, and without them, that creation was beginning to die. Every passing day felt heavier, every sound quieter, as if the universe itself were mourning something it could not replace. Then came the first sign that the silence was not just absence but message. In the abandoned Terran sector of Vega Prime, one of the automated defense satellites reactivated by itself and began transmitting across every known frequency. The Council braced for an attack, but no weapon fired, no fleet appeared. Instead, the signal carried an image, a view of a sunset over Earth's ocean, waves glowing gold beneath a fading sky, and the laughter of human children in the background. It was peaceful, too peaceful, and yet it terrified everyone who saw it. The image played for exactly 7 minutes before ending with a single sentence glowing in dozens of alien languages. "We tried to teach you. No one understood what it meant." Some said it was a glitch, an old recording. Others whispered that it was a warning, humanity's way of saying goodbye. But the effect was undeniable. Across hundreds of worlds, that simple broadcast sparked chaos. The smaller races, the ones humanity had once protected, began to protest, demanding to know why the Council had driven their protectors away. Riots broke out on capital planets, statues of Council leaders were torn down, and everywhere, one phrase echoed through the streets: "We tried to teach you." The words became a curse and a question, an accusation that no one could answer. The Varnak generals tried to restore order with force, deploying fleets to rebellious colonies, but even their ships began to fail. Terran-made navigation systems glitched, weapons jammed, and entire squadrons drifted powerless through space. The engineers found nothing wrong. The systems simply refused to respond, as if obeying a will greater than their own. Panic spread faster than light. On the Council homeworld, the Thalan Prime Minister held a meeting in desperation. "It's a trick," he said, his crystalline form trembling. "Some hidden Terran protocol designed to make us weak." But an Eluvian elder, one who had fought beside humans during the wars of the past, shook his head. "No," he said softly. "It's not punishment. It's reflection. They want us to see ourselves without them." His words were dismissed as poetic nonsense, but deep inside, even the most cynical council members felt the truth in them. For the first time in history, the galaxy was being forced to look at itself, and it didn't like what it saw. Then the anomalies began. Across space, derelict Terran ships long thought destroyed began to stir. Old warships, rusted and drifting, suddenly powered up, their engines glowing faintly before going dark again. Research stations lost centuries ago began transmitting bursts of data that no one could decode. The messages weren't threats or coordinates. They were fragments of human speech, laughter, and music. It was as if the ghosts of humanity were breathing through the machines they had left behind. Some scientists argued that it was random electromagnetic noise, but others, the ones who had studied humans the longest, disagreed. They believed humanity had left these echoes intentionally, a living memory woven into their technology, a reminder that silence did not mean absence. The strangest event came from the colony world of Illyra. Its moons had been dark since the humans vanished, but one night, every surface lit up in blue light, forming symbols that matched ancient Terran alphabets. From orbit, the words could be read clearly. "We left so you could see." The council ordered the images hidden, fearing mass hysteria, but within days they spread anyway. No one could stop the truth anymore. Humanity had chosen to leave, not to punish, but to reveal. They had forced the galaxy to stand alone, to face what it had become without them. The races that had called humans dangerous now realized the truth. They were never the threat. They had been the mirror showing everyone else what they were afraid to see. Civilizations began to crumble. The Varnak Dominion fell into civil war, its people divided between those who still hated humanity and those who prayed for their return. The Keeler hierarchy's economy collapsed completely as Terran-designed AI cores shut down. On the Council's capital, desperate leaders gathered, their arrogance finally broken. The Dalan Prime Minister, once proud and defiant, stood before the assembly and whispered, "We mocked their chaos, but it was their chaos that kept us alive." His voice echoed through the chamber, heavy with regret. No one spoke after that. The galaxy had lost its noise, and in that silence, every being began to feel something it had long forgotten: shame. For centuries, humanity had been seen as reckless, emotional, unpredictable, but now the galaxy understood why they were those things. They had passion, purpose, and a love for life that no logic could replicate. They fought not for dominance, but because they refused to let the universe grow still. And now, without them, everything had stopped moving. The great cities dimmed, the trade routes emptied, the music of the stars faded. The universe had grown quiet, but not peaceful. The silence that humanity left behind was not calm. It was judgment. It whispered through empty corridors and across abandoned worlds, asking the same question again and again. What did you learn from us? The answer, of course, was nothing. The galaxy had learned nothing. And for that, it wept. As the fear turned to despair and despair to regret, the galaxy began to break apart, piece by piece, under the weight of the silence humanity had left behind. Because it wasn't just the absence of a species. It was the collapse of everything they had built, every system they had held together through sheer will and unrelenting spirit. The Galactic Council, once the proud voice of unity, now stood hollow and broken, its chambers nearly empty, its members divided between those still clinging to power and those too afraid to speak. Whole sectors of space were falling into chaos. Trade routes had become graveyards of derelict ships, drifting with no purpose. Starports once bustling with thousands now echoed with emptiness, haunted by machines that still spoke in old Terran tongues. The galaxy had become a reflection of its arrogance, a mirror showing what it truly was without humanity to guide, challenge, and defy it. A collection of frightened species hiding behind fading lights, too proud to admit they had lost the one race that gave them purpose. The Keeler hierarchy, once so proud of its intellect, now begged for help as their reactors failed. Terran design systems refused to reboot, showing only one error message across every display. Authorization required. Human presence not detected. Engineers worked until their hands bled, but nothing worked. The AI cores they depended on had gone silent, as if mourning their creators. Across the galaxy, the same story repeated. The Varnak war fleets, once unmatched in strength, found their engines unresponsive and their weapons frozen. The great ships that had once enforced the Council's laws became floating tombs, monuments to a species' dependence on those they once called inferior. And when the systems finally began to fail completely, a terrifying truth emerged. Humanity hadn't just left. They had taken something intangible with them, something that could not be rebuilt with machines or logic. The spark, the drive, the defiance that made existence more than survival. On the Council's capital world, a broadcast from the Outer Rim arrived unexpectedly. The screen flickered with static, then displayed a vast city under golden light, an old Terran colony known as New Horizon, thought long abandoned. It was alive again, powered, bright, but no beings were visible. Automated drones floated through the air, tending to gardens and repairing buildings as if still awaiting their master's return. And then, faintly, a voice played through the feed. It was calm, weary, unmistakably human. "You called us chaos," it said. "You called us dangerous. But we were the reason you survived your own peace." The transmission ended there, but the silence that followed felt heavier than any explosion. It wasn't anger that the voice carried. It was disappointment, the kind a teacher feels when the student refuses to learn. Across the galaxy, the effect was immediate. Entire worlds held vigils in the dark, lighting their skies with blue flares to honor the color of Earth's oceans. Even the coldest empires began to whisper prayers for forgiveness. But others couldn't accept it. The Varnak Dominion declared that the humans' departure was an act of war. "They've cursed our systems," their new leader roared. "We will purge their presence from our history." They began to destroy every piece of Terran technology they could find, burning archives, erasing data, even demolishing monuments built during the years of peace. But no matter how much they destroyed, the silence only grew louder, as if the very void mocked their denial. Their planets went dark one by one, their own machines turning against them. Meanwhile, smaller civilizations began to crumble in grief. On the world of Thessa, once protected by human fleets, an old alien priest stood before a crowd and spoke the words that echoed through a million comms. "We thought we were gods. They reminded us we were children. And when we refused to grow, they left us to our silence." The galaxy began to fracture not through war but through guilt. The Council's last surviving members met in secret, their faces drawn and hollow. "We should have listened," one said softly, his voice trembling. "They asked only for peace and understanding, and we gave them rules, chains, and ridicule." Another answered bitterly, "It is too late. They are gone, and we are what remains of their failure." But something strange began to happen after that. On distant worlds once colonized by humans, faint lights started to appear in the night skies, small, shimmering beacons that blinked in rhythmic patterns. At first, astronomers thought they were natural anomalies, but the patterns were too deliberate, too precise. When decoded, they translated into words written in ancient Terran code. "Do not mourn us. Learn." The message repeated endlessly, reaching every corner of the galaxy, as if humanity's presence still lingered in the stars, guiding them even in absence. For a brief moment, hope flickered again. Maybe they hadn't abandoned the galaxy entirely. Maybe they had just stepped away to see what it would do when left alone. The hope, however, came too late for most. Wars broke out again, not between species, but within them. The strong preyed on the weak, old grudges reignited, and the fragile unity humanity had built collapsed completely. Yet, in that destruction, something began to change. Small groups of scholars and wanderers started to follow humanity's teachings, studying their history, their art, their stubborn will to rise again. They called themselves the Keepers of the Silence. Their creed was simple: where humanity had chosen to leave, they would remain as witnesses and students. They traveled across dead worlds, gathering fragments of Terran wisdom, preserving what was left of their legacy. One of them, a young Alluvian scientist, discovered something remarkable deep beneath the ruins of an old Terran station. A hidden archive, untouched by time, glowing softly with power. When activated, it projected a holographic image of Earth seen from orbit, and a single line of text appeared across the display. "We did not leave to be missed. We left so you could see." The scientist wept, realizing what it meant. Humanity's silence had been the galaxy's test. They had walked away not out of vengeance, but out of faith, faith that someday the others would learn what it meant to live, to build, to feel. When the Council received this revelation, it was already too late to rebuild what was lost. Most of the great empires had fallen. The stars were quieter than ever. But for the first time in history, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, alive, carrying a lesson so heavy it could never be forgotten. Humanity hadn't destroyed the galaxy. They had handed it back to its inhabitants, stripped of the comfort their presence had given. And now, as every world looked to the sky, they could almost feel it. That same unspoken truth glowing in the distance like a memory that refused to fade. The humans were gone, but their silence would forever echo louder than their words. Then came the revelation. A discovery so vast and unexpected that it tore through the silence like thunder in an empty sky, because while the galaxy was falling apart, a forgotten listening post deep in the Orion fringe detected something. An echo, faint and ancient, coming from far beyond mapped space. The signal was unlike anything seen before. A slow pulse, rhythmic and deliberate, carrying with it fragments of human language interwoven with something older, something cosmic. The scientists who decoded it realized it was not random, it was coordinates. The message repeated endlessly, simple yet chilling. If you seek answers, come where light ends. Against all warnings, a joint expedition of the remaining council races formed a fleet and set their course toward those impossible coordinates, traveling further than any species had dared, through regions where starlight itself seemed to fade. What they found there defied the laws of nature and every fragment of arrogance the galaxy had ever possessed. Hanging in the dark was a colossal structure, so vast it dwarfed moons, glowing faintly with pale blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. It wasn't built. It had grown, organic and metallic, alive in ways no machine should be. It hummed with energy so deep that sensors could not measure it, and every time a ship moved closer, the crew felt something pressing against their thoughts. Not words, but emotion, as if the structure itself was aware and waiting. They called it the Silent Bastion, and at its core, carved into its surface in massive letters that stretched for miles, were human words written in countless languages. We left to protect you. No one knew what it meant, but when the first exploratory team landed, they discovered something even more impossible. A vast chamber filled with holographic records, billions of them, showing human history in perfect detail. The rise of Earth, the wars, the peace, the songs, the failures, the triumphs. All of it preserved, glowing like a living memory. But there were other recordings too, images of things no one recognized. Shadows with shape, creatures made of darkness and light, bending through space like smoke. Every record ended the same way, with the same line appearing across the holographic field. They are coming. The scientists watched in silence, their fear growing with each new file. Humanity hadn't left because of arrogance or despair. They had left because they had seen something coming that the rest of the galaxy could not face. Word spread like wildfire. The Council sent every available expert, priest, and commander to the bastion, but none could explain what they found. Some believed it was a monument to humanity's sacrifice. Others said it was a weapon. Yet when they tried to extract data from it, the bastion responded. Lights flared across its surface, and a message played across every system in the galaxy. The voice was unmistakably human, calm, filled with sorrow. "We warned you," it said. "We tried to prepare you. We left so you could choose what to become when the stars began to die." Then the message faded, leaving only silence again. The Council was thrown into chaos. If humanity had known about an oncoming disaster, what was it? And worse, was it already here? Within weeks, strange phenomena began to spread from the edge of known space. Stars began to dim one by one. Entire systems went dark, swallowed by a creeping black void that consumed energy, light, and matter alike. Fleets sent to investigate vanished without a trace. The Council tried to hide the truth, but it was too late. Civilizations began to panic. Priests claimed it was judgment. Scientists said it was an entropy wave, the end of time itself. But those who had stood within the bastion knew the truth. They had seen it in the human recordings. The darkness was alive. It was the same thing humanity had fled to confront. They had left not in defeat, but in defense, stepping into the void to face what no other species could. The galaxy's fear turned to guilt. They had mocked humanity for their violence, their chaos, their endless wars, never realizing that those very traits had forged them into the only species capable of facing this kind of enemy. While others debated, humans acted. While others hid, humans fought. Now they were gone, and the galaxy stood naked before the storm they had been shielded from. As the darkness spread, the bastion grew brighter, its heartbeat faster, until finally, it began transmitting once more. This time, it wasn't a message, it was a vision. Across every screen, every sensor, every holographic relay in the galaxy, an image appeared. Fleets of human ships, black as night, moving in perfect silence toward the consuming dark. There were thousands, maybe millions, their engines burning blue, their weapons glowing with unimaginable power. At the front was a single vessel, larger than any ever seen, marked only with the words Terra Eternal. Then the vision changed. The ships reached the edge of the void, and for a moment, all sensors flared with light. A human voice spoke over the transmission, calm, steady, resolute. We said no war. We meant it. But this is not war. This is protection. And then the fleet vanished into the darkness, swallowed whole. The signal ended, and for a moment the galaxy thought it had seen ghosts. But then, the stars that had gone dark began to return, one by one, burning brighter than before. The wave of destruction halted. The darkness receded. The bastion dimmed, its pulse slowing to silence, as if exhausted. Humanity had done it again. They had saved everyone, and yet not a single one of them had returned. The council declared a galactic mourning, but mourning wasn't enough. They knew now what the silence had truly meant. Humanity's disappearance had not been abandonment. It had been a shield. They had carried the burden of the galaxy's survival into the void, facing something older and hungrier than time itself, while those they protected argued and blamed one another. The truth spread across the stars, whispered in sorrow and awe. The humans had left not because they were weak, but because they were the only ones strong enough to stand against the end itself. And somewhere, far beyond the rim, in that endless darkness where even light dared not go, a voice echoed through the void. One final human transmission, faint but clear. No threat, no war, just departure. It was not a goodbye. It was a promise. The darkness retreated, but its echo lingered across the stars like a wound that refused to heal, and the galaxy could not forget what it had seen. The vision of the Terran fleets vanishing into the abyss, their engines burning like the hearts of fallen suns, their silence louder than any declaration of war ever spoken. In the weeks that followed, the stars grew brighter, yes, but they also seemed emptier, as if they too mourned the departure of the species that had once refused to let the universe die quietly. The Galactic Council, now a broken shadow of its former self, gathered one final time in the vast, hollow chamber that had once been filled with laughter, argument, and human voices that challenged everything. The delegates sat in uneasy stillness, surrounded by holograms of Terran faces recorded long ago. Scientists, soldiers, poets, explorers, all staring down at them like ghosts of their own conscience. The council speaker, an aged Illuvian who had once accused humanity of arrogance, rose with trembling limbs and said softly, "They went where none of us would go. They faced what none of us could face. And we called them reckless." His words fell into the still air like stones into water, rippling through the room until every being present lowered their head in shame. But while the council mourned, strange things began to happen across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, human-built technology that had lain dormant for years began to reactivate, glowing with a soft blue light. Machines that had once powered cities restarted by themselves, rebuilding the infrastructure of entire civilizations without command. Satellites long lost to deep space returned from the void, transmitting fragments of data in Terran standard that no one could decipher. The message was simple yet profound, pulses of rhythm, perfectly timed, almost musical. When converted into sound, it was unmistakable. It was the same heartbeat that had echoed from the silent bastion, the same rhythm that had marked the rise of human fleets. Humanity was gone, yet their heartbeat remained, woven into the circuits of the galaxy itself. Planets that had nearly fallen into ruin began to flourish again, their skies clearing, their seas returning to life. The scientists of the Thalan Ascendancy, once convinced the humans had vanished forever, discovered that Terran nanotechnology had been quietly repairing ecosystems on hundreds of planets without direction. It's like they left the universe on autopilot, one researcher whispered. They made sure life would continue even without them. The realization spread like fire, igniting awe and guilt in equal measure. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy, they had prepared it to heal. And as the weeks passed, the stars themselves seemed to hum softly, resonating with that faint heartbeat of light. Then came the second signal, and with it, the proof that the humans were not truly gone. It began as a whisper in the void, a faint pulse detected by deep space arrays that grew stronger with every cycle. It wasn't words, not at first, but a sequence of harmonics so perfect it defied randomness. When decoded through ancient Terran algorithms, the message appeared on every active screen in the galaxy. "We are still watching." Panic rippled through the council remnants, but it wasn't fear that followed. It was relief, because deep down everyone had already felt it. The humans were still out there, unseen, unbound by the limits of time or dimension. They had transcended what it meant to be a single species. They had become guardians, sentinels in the dark. On the world of Seraphis 4, an astronomer claimed to have seen one of their ships, a massive silhouette passing quietly across a dying sun. No transmissions, no weapon signatures, no evidence it existed, except for a faint blue shimmer that followed in its wake, like starlight mourning its passing. The council dismissed it publicly, but privately, they knew the truth. More sightings came in, reports of ships that appeared during meteor storms to protect vulnerable colonies, of strange human figures seen walking through the ruins of old cities, vanishing when approached. They were never aggressive, never intrusive. They came only when needed, as if drawn by the quiet cries of those they had once promised to protect. As centuries passed, these events became legend. Entire religions formed around them, the faith of the silent light, the order of Terra's return, the keepers of the pulse. They spoke of humanity not as gods, but as guardians who had chosen to dwell beyond the stars, ensuring that life, in all its forms, would endure. The galaxy began to rebuild in their image, inspired by the fragments they left behind. Planets adopted Terran principles: cooperation, courage, curiosity. War became rarer, replaced by a quiet determination to be worthy of the silence that had saved them. Humanity's absence had become its greatest lesson, teaching unity through loss, strength through sorrow. 1,000 years after the day of departure, the silent bastion reactivated. Its pulse returned, slower this time, steadier, almost peaceful. Every world tuned in to listen. The holographic image of Earth appeared once again, no longer blue and green, but glowing white, surrounded by halos of light. A human voice spoke across every frequency in the galaxy, calm and timeless, like the voice of memory itself. "We asked you to listen," it said, "and now you finally hear. You have rebuilt, you have learned, and because of that, we can rest." For a long moment, there was silence. Then the image of Earth dissolved into a field of stars, and from that light came one final phrase, one that would echo through eternity. "We are humanity. We do not fade. We endure." After that, the bastion went dark forever. But no one felt fear this time. The galaxy stood beneath its countless suns, feeling the warmth of peace humans had fought and died to preserve. And though they never returned, their presence never left. Every heartbeat, every flicker of light, every quiet moment beneath the stars carried a trace of them. Because humanity had not vanished, they had become part of everything. Their silence was no longer an absence. It was the hum of the universe itself, the steady pulse that reminded every living being what it truly meant to be alive. When the centuries of silence finally settled into memory, the galaxy stood changed, its people quieter, humbler, and filled with something they had not known before: understanding. The wars had stopped not because of treaties, not because of fear, but because there was nothing left to prove. Every civilization now lived beneath the long shadow of humanity's legacy, the lesson carved into the heart of creation itself. That strength was not in power, but in restraint. The humans had never needed to dominate, they only needed to walk away. And that walk had forced the galaxy to see itself for what it truly was. The silence of their departure had been the greatest weapon ever forged, because it did not destroy, it revealed. The Galactic Council no longer existed in its old form. It had been replaced by something smaller, wiser, known simply as the Concord of Worlds. Its chambers, once filled with noise, now stood in reverent quiet, a vast hall of light surrounded by statues of Terran explorers, scientists, and soldiers. In the center of that hall stood a single monument, the Earth sphere, a shimmering orb that pulsed faintly with blue light, the same heartbeat that had once echoed through the silent bastion. Every being who entered that place could feel it deep within their bones. A rhythm both foreign and familiar, a reminder that the humans had become more than mortal, that their essence had woven itself into the fabric of existence. Life slowly flourished again. Planets destroyed by greed and war began to heal, guided by machines humanity had left behind, still working quietly to mend the scars they had not caused. New generations grew up never having seen a human, but they spoke of them as if they were myth, stories told under the stars about the species that refused to die, about the protectors who had become the pulse of the cosmos. And sometimes, late at night, when the skies were clear and the stars burned brighter than usual, people swore they could hear something. A soft whisper, the faint murmur of a voice carried on solar winds, like the sound of someone saying, "We are still here." No one dared to confirm it. No one dared to deny it. The galaxy had learned to live with the mystery, because mystery was better than arrogance, and silence was safer than certainty. Then, on the 1000th anniversary of their disappearance, the unthinkable happened. Across every inhabited world, at the exact same moment, the stars flickered, not dimming, but shifting, as though every sun in the galaxy had taken a deep breath. Communications across billions of systems activated on their own, every screen, every console, every relay showing a single image. Earth, glowing white and gold, suspended in the dark like a living sun. The oceans shimmered like liquid glass, and continents blazed with symbols no one could translate. The voice that followed was not loud, not commanding. It was calm, resonant, carrying warmth that reached into the heart of every living thing that heard it. "You have endured," it said. "You have learned to listen. The silence is no longer your punishment. It is your gift. Keep it, cherish it, because through it, you have heard what words could not teach." Then, as quickly as it came, the image vanished, and the stars returned to their natural glow. The galaxy stood breathless, united in awe and tears, because in those few words, they felt humanity's presence more clearly than ever before. From that day onward, the galaxy was never the same. The Concord of Worlds declared the Day of Light, a celebration not of victory, but of remembrance. Once every cycle, every world powered down its machines, silenced its transmissions, and sat beneath the stars in total quiet, listening to the hum of the universe, the hum that carried the faint echo of human hearts. Some called it myth, others called it faith, but none could deny that in the stillness of those nights, when the winds slowed and the stars shimmered softly, something answered back. It wasn't a word, nor a song, just a pulse, a steady, living rhythm that matched the heartbeat of every being who remembered. Humanity's lesson had taken root. They had left no empires, no monuments of stone, only the truth that peace could be louder than war, that understanding could outlive conquest, and that silence, once feared, could become the sound of life itself. And yet, somewhere beyond the rim, in the quiet gulf where light grew thin, there were still shadows that moved, vast shapes that defied distance, silent fleets gliding through the dark between galaxies. Sometimes, observatories caught glimpses of them, black ships reflecting starlight like the wings of angels. They never approached, never attacked, never spoke. They simply moved, endless and patient, guardians of a peace no one could comprehend. And though no one could prove it, everyone knew what they were. The humans had not vanished into death. They had ascended into duty, becoming the sentinels of a universe they had once fought to save. The silence they left behind was not the end. It was their eternal watch, the living heartbeat of creation itself. So when the children of new worlds looked up at the sky and asked who humanity was, their elders answered softly. They were the ones who taught us that silence is not the absence of life. It is the sound of understanding. And in that answer lay the truth that would outlast all empires, all gods, all stars, that humanity's final departure had not been farewell but transformation, that no threat, no war, no words had ever been their legacy. Their legacy was this, an entire galaxy learning to listen, to feel, and to live because once a small, fragile world called Earth had dared to go quiet and in doing so, taught the stars themselves to hear.